Living and Loving Life's podcast is to help people find their balance spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, and socially. Listeners will have a positive mindset, renewed outlook for themselves, their future, and believe they are beautifully made inside and out. Listeners will shine and be an example to others as they live fully, completely with no barriers, no burdens, and no regrets.
Welcome back, my listeners, to Motivational Mondays with Living and Loving podcast. Today we have an amazing guest. We have Amy with us, and I'm going to let her take the floor and tell us a little bit about herself and where she is and what she's doing currently. Hi, Amy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is just an amazing opportunity to be here with you. And I guess, where I should start is I'm in San Diego. So that's my home base.
Nice.
However, yes, I travel full time in my RV with my husband and our 3 fur babies. So we are constantly on the road and trying out new sites. So that's an exciting lifestyle. And what I do is I am a certified clinical trauma therapist, and I'm also an ascension coach. Nice. So I do both. I do coaching and I do therapy work. And essentially what my goal is to help people awaken spiritually by healing their inner child. And that's, I would say that sums it up for the most part, but I'm happy to answer any other questions as they arise.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so Amy, tell me a little bit about your journey and how did you land in this space?
Oh, yes. So I would say this started very young for me. I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I had this knowing that I was meant to do something in the world to make a difference. And I didn't know how it was going to turn out or what it was going to look like. Mm-hmm. But it came to me, I would say, probably later in life, like probably early adulthood, when I realized I really enjoy helping people. I just knew there was this desire to help and make a difference. And I felt like maybe I should try coaching. So I tried coaching and that worked out really well, except I did have one client that changed almost everything for me. And this client helped me realize that I didn't have the skills and resources as a coach to help her because she had this therapy that she was going to right now, or at that time. And as she was going to therapy, she was just really stuck. And she needed a coach that had basically mind, body, and spirit tools, right? Like an integration kind of experience. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have that just yet. And I definitely didn't go to therapy school yet. And so I didn't have any of those resources she needed to support her in that way. And I realized, I want to integrate psychology. I want to integrate spirituality together. And that led me to, go to a holistic psychotherapy school where I learned, how to work with trauma in a more transpersonal and a more spiritual way. And so that was my journey, my professional journey. I would say my personal journey around this was growing up in a family. I had a lot of difficulty in being an empath and struggling with a lot of alcoholism in my family and trying to regain control and figure out who I am in that. And it took me a while to really realize who I am and what I was meant to do through that anxiety journey. But that, that's kind of going back many, many years to my childhood. Mm-hmm. But if it wasn't for that, I would not have learned I was a helper. I wouldn't have learned that I was meant to do those things.
So let's stop right there, Amy, and let's marinate a little bit because yes, I feel you and I understand because even before I was a life coach, I would say things to my sister and was like, well, maybe I went through these things because of my purpose. Yes. And she's like, there's no way you don't get hurt to fix. And I was like, well, because it's one thing to be compassionate about something, but then it's a whole nother scale when you can understand and feel the pain.
Yes. Oh, yes. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You can say, you know what? I've never lost a mom. I've never lost a parent. Please I can't right now. But what I'm saying to you is I couldn't tell someone, I know what it feels like to lose a parent because I don't. So I can only give you this, but if I've actually lived it, I can give you the full spectrum of it, of how it feels, what I did to get through it, and how to move yourself forward.
Exactly. Yes.
So when you say that, you verified for me because I always thought to myself, like, I promise, I don't know where it came from. Clearly, I do know where it came from. I'm very spiritual. And he gave me that, but he's basically like, there's tests that we go through, but for reasons, so that when we are in this seat or the space to help, because we're helpers, we can really understand the person so that they can feel comfortable enough to really open up to who they are and to find that person.
Yes, absolutely. Whew, that's deep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of wisdom there.
That was a lot, but that's the thing, is that's when the person can truly open up who they truly are. They don't feel judged. They don't feel less than or horrible, because all of those things, unfortunately, are attached to things that are out of our control. But it just, our minds are like, you're the bad person. You did this, all of these things, and I'm only speaking from experience because I lived it, And so when you have that space to feel like, oh, this person feels me, they can now let those guards down and really open up, get to that inner child that needs to be addressed so that they can move forward.
Oh, that's such an important point. And I would just to add to that, I would say that, most of the people who have found me and wanted to work with me as a therapist or as a coach have said, I decided to work with you because I saw that on your website, you explored your own personal journey and what it was like to heal and how you've been through something similar. Again, right, as you'd mentioned, it's never exactly the same and you can't 100% put yourself in another's shoes. But it was through that, right, through seeing my website, seeing that vulnerability, right, in my journey and the experience that I had to go through. It made a huge difference. Yeah, absolutely. It was really difficult, I would say, to be able to share that at first and to open up and to say, okay, this was my journey. I was struggling with anxiety. I was really struggling with this trauma that was like haunting me in many ways. And no matter what I did, I wasn't able to heal from it. So I know what that feels like. So I can say that, to some extent, and everyone's trauma stories are absolutely different and unique. But I would say that through that experience, people found that they could relate to me. Right. And when people are relatable, then you feel you can open up more. It's not this, right? We kind of drop our perfectionism and the critic side of us when we feel like we're heard and seen, which heals the inner child. So it really all comes back full circle to that, I would say. Yeah.
So awesome. I love that. Yeah. And that's the big thing about a lot of times, a lot of podcasts that I've been on as a guest, they'll say, well, there's a lot of competition out there. Well, there's also a lot of different coffee taste and tea taste. And I don't like all the coffee taste. There's only one specific one I like. So I'm not everybody's coffee taste or tea. Everybody has their own thing, like something that works with you, or they see like they mesh better with you. They go with you. That's your person. I have a different person, so I don't feel like I'm in any competition with people. I feel like we all have our places.
Yeah.
You have your people, I have my people, and there's so many people that need help. We need more of us to be doing this so that we can help as many. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And, the word that comes to my mind is light workers, right? Acting as light workers in the world. And there can't be too many of us, I would say, right? Absolutely correct. Yeah. There's more that's needed because there's a lot of suffering. Truly, there's a lot of suffering in the world. And so this is, an excellent conversation because I know people listening, right? They're going to hopefully be able to see that they can be a light worker too, right? We're all meant to be in this way, but we have to look at our own suffering first, right? And we have to move through that. And we're not meant to do it alone either. And I think a lot of us tend to take that path and try to do it alone in the hopes that, we're going to figure it out in that way. And of course, we make progress, but it's tough. It's really tough.
And I think society has painted the picture of like, if you need help, you're weak.
Yeah.
But in my eyes, I think the stronger realize that they need help.
Yes, exactly. I'm with you 100%. Yes.
Yeah. Because it's different lenses that are seeing the same situation. So sometimes, like I tell my clients is, the answer could be right in front of you, but because you're not connecting the dots or you're not seeing it from an unemotional place, you're a little confused on what's going on. So I'm an outsider. I'm not emotionally connected. So I can see it a little bit clearer than you. So I just kind of help you see. I hate to say the obvious because it makes someone sound like they're not getting it, but it's there. You just need help being guided to finding it.
Absolutely. Yes, that's it. Exactly right. And I would say that when you're in it, right, it's like you don't even know. It's like you're a fish, in water. You have no idea you're in water, right? You have no idea what's going on. And so when you do have a third party perspective and somebody comes in and they're willing to say, hey, I want to walk this journey with you. Right. You're actually not alone in this. And you never have to be alone in this, in fact. And I think that's the hard part, because we are used to, in many ways, like you said, there's this kind of stigma around it, right? And being weak. And then also there's this idea of, okay, well, what if I speak my truth? What if people don't love me for my truth? What if, I do speak up and I'm vulnerable? What happens? Yeah. Then we come down to the shame conversation. And that is an inner child wound in many, many ways. Yeah. That's where
that's what the thing is so I also had a podcast the other day with this, an actual therapist, and he goes, what's the difference between you and us? And I said, honestly, I think it depends on the person, depending on what they need. There's been times I've said to people, like, you're a little further beyond my scope of practice. And I'm okay with saying that, because the point is to help the client, however that is, with me or like people like you. So that's the purpose of me doing the podcast too, is because clearly we're doing the same thing, but in different ways. And if the person doesn't resonate with me, maybe they will with you.
Yeah, such a great point, because it's all about making sure that they get the help they need, right? Regardless of what path, what avenue they need to go down. It's all about making sure they are connecting with the right person, because there's like an energy signature, I think, with each person, right? And there's a match for each person, right? Along this path and along this spiritual awakening journey, truly, because all healing, in my opinion anyway, and in the work that I've done is really helping us to head towards spiritual awakening and help us understand who we really are in the long term. Yeah.
Yep. I think the real truth is clearly there's a bad spirit, and he tries to keep people as much confused as possible so that they can't find him. So when you undo all of that, it helps them be clearer to get to their path where they're trying to go. So let's talk about this a little bit. So when you're saying to heal your inner child and awaken your spirituality, what does that mean?
Yes. So when we talk about healing the inner child, maybe I should give some clarity around what does it mean? What does that look like, right? From the very beginning, from the foundation, and then we can kind of head into what that looks like spiritually speaking. Okay. So the inner child, if we want to think of it this way, it's like from the very, very beginning, sometimes even in the womb, right? At the very beginning of our life, we are struggling with coming into this world and finding out who we are and getting used to all of the changes that we have to uncover, right? We're learning and we're growing and we're getting taught these different things about who we are, right? Our parents, our caregivers, our teachers, everyone in the world is telling us who we are. And so we develop these wounds, even if you have not been through trauma, even if it's just something that you've just had some kind of adverse life experience, which everybody's had on some level, there is a wounding that occurs. And it's, from the perspective of the spiritual awakening, it's important, right, for us to go through these experiences, because we are learning and growing and understanding more of who we are as spiritual beings beyond the human form. But we have to go through these wounds, and these wounds are things like shame, abandonment, right, and feeling, not loved, not good enough, not okay, right, in the world, not, as women, especially not beautiful enough, not strong enough, all these different things. And these are wounds, right, that really occur very, very young. And for example, what can cause a wound could even be a parent saying, let's say a young child, 5 years old, for example, comes to their mom and is tugging on their leg and says, hey, I want to show you this picture I drew, for example, just a very simple, reach out in that way. And the mom is busy. She's stressed. She's not in the mood, right, to really be in that moment. And she just kind of brushes the child off, right? Not the mom's fault, right? Because the mom is doing the best she can in that moment. But this little girl is thinking, my mom doesn't love me. Right? My mom doesn't care. Right. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me in this moment? So it could be little tiny hurts like that just add up over time, right, that create this wound of shame, of not enoughness, right, within us. And so in order to heal those wounds, we need, it's kind of like a recipe, of what I call it anyway, is number one, we need self-awareness.
Right.
So we need to know 100% through journaling, through meditation, through whichever medium we choose to understand ourselves. We have to know, what are our behavioral patterns? What are our thought patterns? What are things that are keeping us stuck? And if we don't know, we're just going to keep running on autopilot every single day. And you might not even know you have inner child wounds, which is, many people don't even know that's why they're triggered.
Clients don't have a clue. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't know. And it's because, well, number one, we live in a very busy world, in a very busy culture, and we don't take time usually for that kind of self-care, to tap in and to really ask ourselves why, right? Why are we feeling this way? What was that trigger? Where did that come from? Right? Because often there's shame around even touching base with ourselves and finding out the whys. Because if we find out the whys, we might have to deal with those old memories and those old emotions. And so it's a scary thing, but awareness is important. And sometimes you need, the awareness of other people. So maybe a friend, right, can give you some, information for why you might be stuck or what might be coming up that they see. And so there's lots of ways of going about it, but that would be number one in this recipe, so to speak, of healing the inner child. And then the next step is just unconditional love for yourself. Now, this takes time. A lot of time, especially for those who've been through trauma. So I'm going to be honest, it's not an easy thing, for people who struggle with trauma. And that's why the help of a professional of some sort can be really, really useful. But you can do this on your own. In many ways, it's as simple as like a pathway back to prayer process that I've created. And I'd love to share that here if you'd like.
Absolutely.
As a way of, really understanding. So bringing awareness, one, and then bringing compassion to our heart. Okay. So it's a very simple 3-step process for this pathway back to love process. And this is all about helping you as your higher self to become more of at the seat of consciousness, we'll say. So this is you as your higher self saying, I'm leading with love. I'm becoming who I really am in this moment, and helping this inner child just give you a little bit of space and create a little bit of an opening, right, within you, so your heart can open, and so that closure of those wounds, can start to heal over time. So the first step to this would be just simply acknowledging in the moment that there's been an emotional trigger. So it might be something like, okay, I'm triggered right now emotionally. And then you might take a deep breath in, visualizing white light as you're breathing in. And then as you're breathing out, you're just saying to yourself, I am love. Right? So you're just using this as a way of centering. So you're using, deep, belly breaths, and it could take a few seconds. It could take a few minutes. It depends on how activated you might be in that moment. And then the second step here would be to just witness the emotion, right? As you're breathing, now you have a little bit more of a witnessing awareness, right? You can start to see what's happening inside. It might be a lot of turmoil, but that's okay. And one thing you can say to yourself, and it helps to have your eyes closed and your hand on your heart as well, is to say, this is only a wave in the ocean of who I am. So just repeating that over and over. This is only a wave in the ocean of who I am. And just really letting yourself feel what you feel, right? Because often we're so scared to let ourselves feel. Yeah. But if we remind ourselves it's only a wave, right? It doesn't have to take over, right? The wave's going to wash up on the shore and then go back again, right? And so that would be step 2. And then step 3 is simply just acknowledging and coming back to this compassion within you, acknowledging the trigger again. So it might be something like, my inner child's triggered, or something in me's triggered. I'm not sure what, but it feels uncomfortable. And then you might say to yourself, I choose to be kind to myself and love myself through this. And it's just, and of course, naturally find the right words, right, that work for you, because I think and of course, words do matter, and they make a big difference for each person. So, but it's about finding love and kindness and gentleness in that moment, and really speaking those words. And the hand on the heart actually tells your nervous system, I'm safe. I'm nurtured in this moment. So it can be a great way of tapping into your body. And so it's just that 3-step process. So just to kind of summarize it for a moment, it's step 1 is visualizing white light and breathing out, I am love. Step 2 is just simply being the witness of your experience and saying this is only a wave in the ocean of who I am. And then step 3 is getting in touch with the compassion within you and choosing to be kind and loving to yourself despite what you're feeling in that moment. And that can be transformative over time. It can truly transform the way we feel and the way we think. And it can be the first step. Everything. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Everything. The way I see life is so different.
Yeah.
So different. Like I see things different. I enjoy things that I never once was able to enjoy because I was so boggled down and confused and in chaos all the time. You don't have time to just enjoy the little gems that are here on earth, you know?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. That's what trauma will do. That's what, wounds will do is it'll keep you stuck in your conditioned patterns, and joy will be like so far off.
Yeah.
It can be really difficult to remind yourself that, hey, I am joy. I am peace.
Yeah.
I am love.
Yeah.
Right. In those moments. And it feels like it's impossible to realign with that, but that's our true essence. So it's always here.
Yeah. You just have to get to it.
Exactly. You just have to get to it. And there's, some processes, some just layering, so to speak, right, as we go inward.
So one of the things I feel with my clients is I'm not sure how you do your clients, but I don't offer packages. And I don't offer packages because I feel like everybody's journey is different. And to tell someone, okay, 4 weeks, you're ready, roll. Like you were saying, finding that awareness takes time.
Yes.
Then being compassionate to yourself and truly being kind to who you are and being okay with who you are, that takes time as well.
It does.
And to tell someone you have 4 weeks to do all of these major steps is like, you're already putting more anxiety on the person that's coming to you with an anxiety and panic attacks, So I'm very personable when it comes to that. So how do you do with your clients? Are you more one-on-one? Are you programs? How do you see is helping the most?
Yeah, I love that. So I would say, I work differently when I'm in, the therapist role than when I'm in coaching role and the kind of services I offer. So the therapy work is mostly for those who I would say are in like kind of survival wounding mode right now, right? It's like they're feeling a lot of trauma, autopilot. They're maybe experiencing chronic anxiety or depression, and they just feel so stuck and they need a lot of guidance and support in getting out of that place. And with that, I offer, one-to-one sessions with therapy. And so I do both. Actually, I offer, one-to-one for as long as I need. And it isn't package based, but I do offer a package, and, it's completely up to them on what they want to do. But often, the most common one I'll say with therapy is a 6-month package. And the reason why many people choose that is because I've had a lot of experiences. I track a lot of the results I have with clients. And I find that 6 months is a really good place for many of my clients. Not everyone, of course, gets to the place of meeting their goals in 6 months, but a lot of them do. Just because of the kind of work I do, I've been able to track that over time. And so, of course, I always, to your point, it's not a one size fits all. So it's not, after 6 months, you're going to meet your goals and all of a sudden, it's going to be 100% better, because I can't know that.
Right.
But that is, there is something, for some clients anyway, around having a knowing that if I have a certain amount of time, then at least I know that, there's opportunity, right? At least I know that there's going to be an end to this. So I think some clients appreciate that. But yes, you're right. The more highly anxious clients that I see, I would say, are more like, oh no, I don't know about having this time limitation. And they're more like, let's go session by session.
So when you do the 6 months, are those clients that you meet with weekly or monthly?
Yeah. So 6 months, it's really up to them. But at first, I really do suggest it's weekly, because we have to build rapport and we need to build, an understanding of their history. And so that would be definitely, week by week. And then after that, we can always, back off and do more like bi-weekly sessions. And then the coaching is very different. So I do offer a coaching program right now, and it's not one-to-one. And that one it's not so much of it is a time limited package, but there's, some openness to it. So for example, it's a 12-month program. And the reason why it's 12 months is because just due to the transformational nature of the work we're doing, I've noticed in that regard, it actually takes longer than 6 months because we're doing a lot more in the coaching world in this kind of program. It's called the Awaken Living program. And we're doing a lot more than we would do one-to-one in therapy because we only have an hour, right? Every week in therapy. And in coaching, there's a lot more time we can spend. So you can have larger goals and really work towards them in a greater or more expanded way. And that's for people who are just ready. They're ready for that next level of their spiritual growth. They probably have some trauma still to heal and some wounds to work through, but they feel pretty self-sufficient for the most part. In other words, they're not having, extreme depression and things like that on a daily basis that require, a professional therapist to help them through something, or they have a therapist and they need a coach as like a secondary person in their life to help them reach their spiritual goals. So there's that. And I would say that, in the 12-month program, this is something that I offer as well, that if they don't meet their goals in the 12-month program, that they can still stay in the program for as long as they need to. So there isn't a time limitation, but there's a minimum, essentially, is what I like to say. And the minimum is a year because, this is really, really deep work we're doing here. And so it takes time for integration. Yeah. And it takes time to really understand what's happening in there because there can be a lot of confusion, of course, and a lot of shifts along the way. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you find with your clients, so when you're intake, I don't know if you asked this, but I asked core values or visions. Do you find that your clients change that in the middle of sessions or at the end?
That's a really great question. I would say that for the most part, we do a visualization in our first session typically. And this would be for therapy, but also for coaching. Once we do like our first initial coaching call before they join the program, we will look at what is the vision? What is the goal that you want to meet? What does that feel like to you? And values is a very big conversation actually throughout the work we do together, but some of them don't know what their values are right off the bat. So it's more of a, what does your life look like in 3 months? If things were resolved, what might that feel like in 6 months, if this was resolved? So it's that kind of question that I get. And I would say that throughout our time together, it doesn't usually change all that much, typically, when I'm working with clients. Maybe it shifts a little bit, or, there's some kind of variations in it. But I would say overall, the people that are coming in, they're pretty self-aware, the women I work with. So they have a clear understanding of what their needs are, for the most part. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So tell me, what would happen to be one of your hardest lessons that you've learned during your journey? And do you use that on your day-to-day basis?
Yes. So I would say one of the hardest things I've learned is that sometimes we think we're healed, right? And we've gone through the journey of healing our wounds. Then we discover we have this automatic trigger that pops up. And in that moment, we recognize that we're not as healed as we thought we were. And so it can be, of course, discouraging and disappointing. And I had this exact experience in my 20s when my dad suddenly passed away. And when he passed away, and thank you. And I know it was so challenging at the time. I had no idea how to sort through it. I had just finished my graduate school program. I was seeking a psychotherapy job, and I didn't really know how to navigate, my life at that point, because me and my dad were best friends, and he was moving to the area, that next month. So there were a lot of processing I had to do, a lot of emotional processing I had to do around it. And I had a lot of inner child wounding come up around this time. And I realized at that point, because I had done a lot of therapy, a lot of trauma therapy, a lot of EMDR and parts work, and really discovering more of the wounding within me and how to work through it. And I thought, I've got this, right? I'm ready to see clients. I'm ready to do this work. And then my dad passed, and it just, a flood of emotions came over me. And at that point, I recognized that the wounding isn't always conscious, right? It's not always available to us until we go through the hard stuff, right? Until we're re-triggered by an event, maybe, especially loss in any way, right? It doesn't have to be the loss of a loved one. It could be the loss of, maybe a home. It could be the loss of an identity, right? It could be the loss of a job, whatever it may be, right? For each person. And when we think about loss in this way, it challenges who we are and who we are at our core. And I would say at that point, right? We start to recognize that we do have more healing to do, right? And it's just that next layer. I call these layers almost, right? Layers of woundings that we have to work through. And so for me, it was this, I had to be really honest with myself and say, you know what? I have a lot more work to do around this, because I realized there was a lot of sadness coming up from my inner child around my dad's passing. And I had to do a lot of memory work, from the past, things that I didn't know I needed to do. And that helped a lot. So I used to have this idea in my head of, I don't want to be the wounded healer, right? I want to work with people and I want to have all my stuff figured out. My perfectionist was showing up for sure at that point. She's like, let's make all this happen, right? Yeah. But I realized it's just not like that. And I had to give myself some grace, give myself some gentleness, and recognize, healing doesn't happen like that, right? Yeah. Healing doesn't happen immediately. It happens, in layered moments of our life experience. And so I recognized, yes, I needed to do some healing, of course, before I worked with clients directly. And I did. And I went to see my own therapist and I worked with a coach. And then I did, start seeing clients at that point when I was ready. But when I was ready, I didn't say to myself, I'm 100% healed and everything is, ready, and ready to go. And I don't need to continue to do my own work. But it was more of, this is a continuation journey for me now. And, but I'm ready. And you just know sometimes, right? You just know in your heart if you're ready to do that work.
So that helped you with the perfectionist part, thinking like I have to be perfect before I can do this, this, and this. Right.
Exactly. Absolutely. That perfectionist part has shown up a lot, just within my graduate school program, and this idea of you really need to show up for people. Right? You have to be this, perfect person. Of course, that wasn't said, but it was almost like this knowing as you as a therapist, right? You got to sit there, you got to be there for them, and you have to have your own stuff together kind of thing. Right. And yes, that is true, of course, to an extent, right? We do need to have our stuff together and we do need to be present for others and be compassionate. And we have to work on our own wounding before we can do that. However, it's not a perfectionist game. Right. That's not how this works. We are human beings, right? We're humans having, or rather spiritual beings having a human experience. And so with that, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to have triggers, right? We're going to feel a lot of emotion, and we have to just look at that and say, what part of me maybe, right, needs more love and compassion right now for this healing. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's good though, that you learned that we're forever. It's never, you're never going to arrive. You're always arriving. Yes. Continuously. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. You're always arriving. That's right.
All right. So in your opinion, what does it mean to you to live and love life?
Yeah. So I love this question. I would say to live and love life requires first and foremost to be authentic with ourselves, to be vulnerable, right? And true and honest with where we are in our lives and with the people that we love and care about. And because if we're not living an authentic life, if we're not living a vulnerable life, how can we truly love the life that we have, right? Because there's always going to be resentment or frustration or that inner critic showing up around, who do you think you are, right? With that imposter syndrome or whatnot. So until we've made peace, I think, with who we are, truly who we are, right? And not just our personality and our behavioral patterns, everything. It's just, this is in this moment who I'm showing up as, right? And that's the moment, that's the portal, I think, to living and loving life.
Yeah, it's true. All right. So any new products or anything you want to share with the listeners?
Yes. So I have a spiritual awakening guidebook download. It's complimentary, and I can provide the URL. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I'll put it in our show notes for everybody.
Okay, excellent. So it is One Awakening, and it's ONE awakening.us/awaken. And so you can click that link and you can find that spiritual awakening guidebook there.
Nice.
And what this is it goes through, which we didn't have, time to talk about today, but it goes through the 6 phases of spiritual awakening, which help us to understand this journey of healing our inner child and what that looks like as we go through these different pathways. And also provides a journal, a spiritual awakening journal, coming back to that self-awareness that we spoke about earlier and how that's a big first step in healing. That journal makes a big difference in understanding our patterns and changing them each and every day of our lives. So yeah, I offer that up for anyone who really is just ready to deepen their spiritual journey and get to know who they really are.
Awesome. Okay, great. So listeners, thank you so much. And let's thank Amy for coming on and dropping those jewels. All of your information as far as like where they can find you and follow you, I will put that on the show notes so that they can find you easily. And that link would be very nice because I'm pretty sure it will help someone somewhere.
Great.
And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, listeners, and we'll see you back next Monday for your Motivational Mondays. Have a great week.
If you love the Living and Loving Life podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.